The Ocean of Story. B.C.H. Tawney's translation of Somadeva's Katha Sarit Sagara, narrated by Anita Saran. The Ocean of Story is one of the world's oldest and richest collections of tales composed in ancient India over 1,000 years ago. These stories were never meant to stand alone. They flow into one another like waves, each tale opening the door to the next, creating a vast narrative ocean of wonder, wit, and imagination. In this series, I read from the classic English translation by Charles Henry Tawney, a public domain work preserving the original rhythm, humour, and storytelling spirit. The stories retain their framed tales and interwoven structure just as they were originally told, as living, unfolding narration rather than isolated fables. These tales feature kings, sages, demons, clever women, wandering ascetics, talking animals, riddles, magic, and sudden reverses of fate. They were enjoyed by both adults and children for their entertainment value and moral insight. This narration is offered for listeners of all ages, for children discovering stories for the first time, and for adults returning to them with fresh ears. Welcome to the Ocean of Story. Step in and let the current carry you. Having related this episode to Kalabhuti in the Vindhya forest, Vararuchi again resumed the main thread of his narrative. While thus dwelling there with Vyadi and Indradatta, I gradually attained perfection in all sciences and emerged from the condition of childhood. Once on a time, when we went out to witness the festival of Indra, we saw a maiden looking like some weapon of Jupiter, not as the nature of an arrow. Then Indradatta, on my asking him who that lady might be, replied, "She is the daughter of Upavarsha, and her name is Upakosa." And she found out by means of her handmaids who I was, and drawing my soul after her with a glance made tender by love, she, with difficulty, managed to return to her own house. She had a face like a full moon, and eyes like a blue lotus. She had arms graceful like the stalk of a lotus, and a lovely full bosom. She had a neck marked with 3 lines like a shell, and magnificent coral lips. In short, she was the second Lakshmi, so to speak, the storehouse of the beauty of King Cupid. Then my heart was cleft by the stroke of love's arrow, and I could not sleep that night, through my desire to kiss her bimba lip. Having at last with difficulty gone off to sleep, I saw at the close of night a celestial woman in white garments. She said to me, "Upakosa was thy wife in a former birth. As she appreciates merit, she desires no one but thee. Therefore, my son, thou oughtest not to feel anxious about this matter. I am Saraswati, that dwelled continually in thy frame. I cannot bear to behold thy grief." When she had said this, she disappeared. Then I woke up, and somewhat encouraged, I went slowly and stood under a young mango tree near the house of my beloved. Then a confidant came and told me of the ardent attachment of Upakosa to me, the result of sudden passion. Then I, with my pain doubled, said to her, "How can I obtain Upakosa unless her natural protectors willingly bestow her upon me? For death is better than dishonour. So if by any means your friend's heart became known to her parents, perhaps the end might be prosperous. Therefore, bring this about, my good woman. Save the life of me and of thy friend." When she heard this, she went and told all to her friend's mother. She immediately told it to her husband Upavarsha, he to Varsha, his brother, and Varsha approved of the match. Then, my marriage having been determined upon, Vyadi, by the order of my tutor, went and brought my mother from Kausambi. So Upakosa was bestowed upon me by her father with all due ceremonies, and I lived happily in Patliputra with my mother and my wife. Now in course of time, Varsha got a great number of pupils, and among them there was one rather stupid pupil of the name of Panini. He, being wearied out with service, was sent away by the preceptor's wife, and being disgusted at it, and longing for learning, he went to the Himalaya to perform austerities. Then he obtained from the god who wears the moon as a crest, propitiated by his severe austerities, a new grammar, the source of all learning. Thereupon he came and challenged me to a disputation, and 7 days passed away in the course of our disputation. On the 8th day he had been fairly conquered by me, but immediately afterwards a terrible menacing sound was uttered by Shiva in the firmament. Owing to that, our Aindra grammar was exploded in the world, and all of us, being conquered by Panini, became accounted fools. Accordingly, full of despondency, I deposited in the hand of the merchant Hiranyadatta my wealth for the maintenance of my house, and after informing Upakosa of it, I went fasting to Mount Himalaya to propitiate Shiva with austerities. Story of Upakosa and her 4 lovers. Upakosa, on her part, anxious for my success, remained in her own house, bathing every day in the Ganges, strictly observing her vow. One day, when spring had come, she, being still beautiful, though thin and slightly pale, and charming to the eyes of men, like the streak of the new moon, was seen by the king's domestic chaplain while going to bathe in the Ganges, and also by the head magistrate, and by the prince's minister. And immediately they all of them became a target for the arrows of love. It happened too, somehow or other, that she took a long time bathing that day, and as she was returning in the evening, the prince's minister laid violent hands on her. But she, with great presence of mind, said to him, "Dear sir, I desire this as much as you, but I am of respectable family, and my husband is away from home. How can I act thus? Someone might perhaps see us, and then misfortune would befall you as well as me. Therefore, you must come without fail to my house in the first watch of the night of the spring festival, when the citizens are all excited." When she had said this, and pledged herself, he let her go. But as chance would have it, she had not gone many steps further before she was stopped by the king's domestic chaplain. She made a similar assignation with him also, for the second watch of the same night. And so he too was, though with difficulty, induced to let her go. But after she had gone a little further, up comes a third person, the head magistrate, and detains the trembling lady. Then she made a similar assignation with him too, for the third watch of the same night, and having by great good fortune got him to release her, she went home all trembling, and of her own accord told her handmaids the arrangement she had made, reflecting, "Death is better for a woman of good family when her husband is away, than to meet the eyes of people who lust after beauty." Full of these thoughts and regretting me, the virtuous lady spent that night in fasting, lamenting her own beauty. Early the next morning she sent a maidservant to the merchant Hiranyagupta to ask for some money in order that she might honor the Brahmins. Then that merchant also came and said to her in private, "Show me love, and then I will give you what your husband deposited." When she heard that, she reflected that she had no witness to prove the deposit of her husband's wealth, and perceived that the merchant was a villain. And so, tortured with sorrow and grief, she made a fourth and last assignation with him for the last watch of the same night. So he went away. In the meanwhile, she had prepared by her handmaids in a large vat lamp black mixed with oil, and scented with musk and other perfumes, and she made ready 4 pieces of rag anointed with it, and she caused to be made a large trunk with a fastening outside. So on that day of the spring festival, the prince's minister came in the first watch of the night in gorgeous array. When he had entered without being observed, Upakosa said to him, "I will not receive you until you have bathed, so go in and bathe." The simpleton agreed to that, and was taken by the handmaids into a secret dark inner apartment. There they took off his undergarments and his jewels, and gave him by way of an undergarment a single piece of rag. And they smeared the rascal from head to foot with a thick coating of that lamp-black oil, pretending it was an unguent without his detecting it. While they continued rubbing it into every limb, the second watch of the night came, and the chaplain arrived. The handmaiden thereupon said to the minister, "Here is the king's chaplain come, a great friend of Varuruchi's. So creep into this box." And they bundled him into the trunk just as he was, all naked, with the utmost precipitation, and then they fastened it outside with a bolt. The priest too was brought inside into the dark room on the pretence of a bath, and was in the same way stripped of his garments and ornaments, and made a fool of by the handmaids by being rubbed with lamp-black and oil, with nothing but the piece of rag on him, until in the third watch the chief magistrate arrived. The handmaids immediately terrified the priest with the news of his arrival, and pushed him into the trunk like his predecessor. After they had bolted him in, they brought in the magistrate on the pretext of giving him a bath. So he, like his fellows, with the piece of rag for his only garment, was bamboozled by being continually anointed with lamp-black, until in the last watch of the night the merchant arrived. The handmaids made use of his arrival to alarm the magistrate, and bundled him also into the trunk, and fastened it on the outside. So those three, being shut up inside the box, as if they were bent on accustoming themselves to live in the hell of blind darkness, did not dare to speak on account of fear, though they touched one another. Then Upakosa brought a lamp into the room, and making the merchant enter it, said to him, "Give me that money which my husband deposited with you." When he heard that, the rascal said, observing that the room was empty, "I told you that I would give you the money your husband deposited with me." Upakosa, calling the attention of the people in the trunk, said, "Hear, O ye gods, this speech of Hiranyagupta." When she had said this, she blew out the light, and the merchant, like the others, on the pretext of a bath, was anointed by the handmaids for a long time with lamp-black. Then they told him to go, for the darkness was over, and at the close of the night they took him by the neck and pushed him out of the door sorely against his will. Then he made the best of his way home, with only the piece of rag to cover his nakedness, and smeared with the black dye, with the dogs biting him at every step, thoroughly ashamed of himself, and at last reached his own house. And when he got there, he did not dare to look his slaves in the face while they were washing off their black dye. The path of vice is indeed a painful one. In the early morning, Upakosa, accompanied by her handmaids, went, without informing her parents, to the palace of King Nanda, and there she herself stated to the king that the merchant Hiranyagupta was endeavouring to deprive her of money deposited with him by her husband. The king, in order to inquire into the matter, immediately had the merchant summoned, who said, "I have nothing in my keeping belonging to this lady." Upakosa then said, "I have witnesses, my lord. Before he went, my husband put the household gods into a box, and this merchant with his own lips admitted the deposit in their presence. Let the box be brought here, and ask the gods yourself." Having heard this, the king in astonishment ordered the box to be brought. Thereupon, in a moment, that trunk was carried in by many men. Then Upakosa said, "Relate truly, O gods, what that merchant said, and then go to your own houses. If you do not, I will burn you or open the box in court." Hearing that, the men in the box, beside themselves with fear, said, "It is true, the merchant admitted the deposit in our presence." Then the merchant, being utterly confounded, confessed all his guilt. But the king, being unable to restrain his curiosity, after asking permission of Upakosa, opened the chest there in court by breaking the fastening, and those three men were dragged out, looking like three lumps of solid darkness, and were with difficulty recognized by the king and his ministers. The whole assembly then burst out laughing, and the king in his curiosity asked Upakosa what was the meaning of all this. So the virtuous lady told the whole story. All present in court expressed their approbation of Upakosa's conduct, observing, The virtuous behavior of women of good family who are protected by their own excellent disposition only is incredible. Then all these coveters of their neighbor's wife were deprived of all their living and banished from the country. Who prospers by immorality? Upakosa was dismissed by the king, who showed his great regard for her by a present of much wealth, and said to her, "Henceforth thou art my sister." And so she returned home. Varsha and Upavarsha, when they heard it, congratulated that chaste lady, and there was a smile of admiration on the face of every single person in that city. In the meanwhile, by performing a very severe penance on the snowy mountain, I propitiated the god, the husband of Parvati, the great giver of all good things. He revealed to me that same treatise of Panini, and in accordance with his wish, I completed it. Then I returned home without feeling the fatigue of the journey, full of the nectar of the favour of that god who wears on his crest a digit of the moon. Then I worshipped the feet of my mother and of my spiritual teachers, and heard from them the wonderful achievement of Upakosa. Thereupon joy and astonishment swelled to the utmost height in my breast, together with natural affection and great respect for my wife. Now Varsha expressed a desire to hear from my lips the new grammar, and thereupon the god Kartikeya himself revealed it to him. And it came to pass that Vyadi and Indradatta asked their preceptor, Varsha, what fee they should give him. He replied, "Give me 10 million of gold pieces." So they, consenting to the preceptor's demand, said to me, "Come with us, friend, to ask the king Nanda to give us the sum required for our teacher's fee. We cannot obtain so much gold from any other quarter, for he possesses 990 millions, and long ago he declared your wife Upakosa his sister in the faith. Therefore you are his brother-in-law. We shall obtain something for the sake of your virtues." Having formed this resolution, we 3 fellow students went to the camp of King Nanda in Ayodhya, and the very moment we arrived, the king died. Accordingly, an outburst of lamentation arose in the kingdom, and we were reduced to despair. Immediately Indradatta, who was an adept in magic, said, "I will enter the body of this dead king. Let Vararuchi prefer the petition to me, and I will give him the gold. And let Vyadi guard my body until I return." Saying this, Indradatta entered into the body of King Nanda, and when the king came to life again, there was great rejoicing in the kingdom. While Vyadi remained in an empty temple to guard the body of Indradatta, I went to the king's palace. I entered, and after making the usual salutation, I asked the supposed Nanda for 10 million gold pieces as my instructor's fee. Then he ordered a man named Sakatala, the minister of the real Nanda, to give me 10 million of gold pieces. That minister, when he saw that the dead king had come to life, and that the petitioner immediately got what he asked, guessed the real state of the case. "What is there that the wise cannot understand?" That minister said, "It shall be given, your highness," and reflected with himself, "Nanda's son is but a child, and our realm is menaced by many enemies, so I will do my best for the present to keep his body on the throne, even in its present state." Having resolved on this, he immediately took steps to have all dead bodies burnt, employing spies to discover them. And among them was found the body of Indradatta, which was burned after Vyadi had been hustled out of the temple. In the meanwhile, the king was pressing for the payment of the money, but Sakatala, who was still in doubt, said to him, "All the servants have got their heads turned by the public rejoicing. Let the Brahman wait a moment until I can give it." Then Vyadi came and complained aloud in the presence of the supposed Nanda, "Help, help! A Brahman engaged in magic, whose life had not yet come to an end in a natural way, has been burned by force on the pretext that his body was untenanted, and this in the very moment of your good fortune." On hearing this, the supposed Nanda was in an indescribable state of distraction from grief. But as soon as Indradatta was imprisoned in the body of Nanda, beyond the possibility of escape by the burning of his body, the discreet Sakatala went out and gave me the 10 millions. Then the supposed Nanda, full of grief, said in secret to Vyadi, "Though a Brahman by birth, I have become a Shudra. What is the use of my royal fortune to me, though it be firmly established? When he heard that, Vyadi comforted him and gave him seasonable advice. You have been discovered by Sakatala, so you must henceforth be on your guard against him. For he is a great minister, and in a short time he will, when it suits his purpose, destroy you, and will make Chandragupta, the son of the previous Nanda, king. Therefore, immediately appoint Vararuchi your minister, in order that your rule may be firmly established by the help of his intellect, which is of godlike acuteness. When he had said this, Vyadi departed to give that fee to his preceptor, and immediately Yogananda sent for me and made me his minister. Then I said to the king, though your caste as a Brahmin has been taken from you, I do not consider your throne secure as long as Sakatala remains in office. Therefore destroy him by some stratagem. When I had given him that advice, Yogananda threw Sakatala into a dark dungeon and his 100 sons with him, proclaiming as his crime that he had burnt a Brahmin alive. One porringer of barley meal and one of water was placed inside the dungeon every day for Sakatala and his sons. And thereupon he said to them, my sons, even one man alone would with difficulty subsist on this barley meal, much less can a number of people do so. Therefore, let that one of us who is able to take vengeance on Yogananda consume every day the barley meal and the water. His sons answered him, you alone are able to punish him, therefore do you consume them. For vengeance is dearer to the resolute than life itself. So Sakatala alone subsisted on that meal and water every day. Alas, those whose souls are set on victory are cruel. Sakatala in the dark dungeon, beholding the death agonies of his starving sons, thought to himself, a man who desires his own welfare should not act in an arbitrary manner towards the powerful without fathoming their character and acquiring their confidence. Accordingly, his 100 sons perished before his eyes, and he alone remained alive, surrounded by their skeletons. Then Yogananda took firm root in his kingdom, and Vyadi approached him after giving the present to his teacher, and after coming nearer to him said, may thy rule, my friend, last long. I take my leave of thee. I go to perform austerities somewhere. Hearing that, Yogananda, with his voice choked with tears, said to him, stop thou, and enjoy pleasures in my kingdom. Do not go and desert me. Vyadi answered, King, life comes to an end in a moment. What wise man, I pray you, drowns himself in these hollow and fleeting enjoyments? Prosperity, a desert mirage, does not turn the head of the wise man. Saying this, he went away that moment resolved to mortify his flesh with austerities. Then that Yogananda went to his metropolis, Patliputra, for the purpose of enjoyment, accompanied by me, and surrounded with his whole army. So I, having attained prosperity, lived for a long time in that state, waited upon by Upakosa, and bearing the burden of the office of Prime Minister to that king, accompanied by my mother and my preceptors. There the Ganges, propitiated by my austerities, gave me every day much wealth, and Saraswati, present in bodily form, told me continually what measures to adopt. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to support my voice work and the preservation of rare texts and translations, buy me a coffee.